Hey guys, welcome back. I hope everyone is having a very wonderful day so far, and thanks for stopping by. Today we have the Genesis 2025 points update to get into. There's a lot of stuff, so yeah, let's jump right into it. Alrighty, so first off, let's look at the hits Draco Tail. 5 mana went from 20 to 30, Q2 went from 10 to 15, and Flame went from 0 to 3. So I actually like this change. What it does is it basically completely boxes out multiple 5 manas, but the rest of the deck stays pretty much in check. So if you were to play 2 5 manas, it would be 60, which would mean you can't even play 1 Key 2, 1 Flame, 1 Malulu, and 1 Arthalion, right? Because that would be 103. So there's no way you'd give up even one of Key 2, Flame, Malulu, or Arthalion. Like, there's no way you wouldn't play any of those cards. So 5 mana is basically limited to 1 now, which is, I think, very good. It means Draco Tail is only a breaker deck. It can't play turn 0, at least consistently. 5 mana is always going to be a 1 of. But the rest of the deck around 5 mana is actually still very good, right? So 5 mana is at 30. If you want to play a playset of Malulu, that's going to be 15. Playset of Key 2 is, or sorry, the 1 Key 2 is going to be 15 as well. So that's 60. Arthalion is 20, and the 1 Flame is 3. So with 3 Malulu, 1 Key 2, 1 Flame, 1 Arthalion, that's 83 points alongside the 1 5 mana. Meaning you have 17 to work with. If you play a second Key 2, it brings you to 98. And I think basically the interesting part of Draco Tail is how you're going to use those last 17 points. I think you're always going to play 1 5 mana, 3 Malulu, 1 Arthalion, 1 Flame, and at least 1 Key 2. And then, like, outside of that, what you choose to do is the interesting part. Flame to 3 is also just a hit to a generic card. It's a good card out the sideboard for some decks, and that's fine. Droll to 25. I think this is maybe a bit too much. I don't think you want Droll unplayable, and that's where it is. I would have probably put it to like 20, or maybe, like, I think 15 is probably fine. 20 is like, also fine, but it's like fine where you're almost never seeing Droll. 25, I think you're straight up never seeing Droll. Like 45 for a playset, you would sometimes see it, and I think that's fine. 20 for a playset, you'd very rarely see it. I don't think you're ever going to see 75 for a playset. Maybe if you're trying to like search Droll and play as a one-of, you'd consider it, like with like Sangan or like something like that, but it's just not very good. Nib going from 5 to 6. I think that's probably more impactful than a lot of people realize. The difference between 15 for a playset and 18 is pretty substantial. So I think that is actually a decent nerf. Next, we have Radiant Typhoon. Both Sakata King and Totem Bird went to 10. Chant goes to 10, and Eldom goes to 7. I think it's probably a very good spot for Radiant Typhoon. It wasn't like the most oppressive deck, but it was very strong with 0 points. If you want to play 1 Sakata King, 1 Totem Bird, 3 Eldom, and 3 Chant, that's 71, meaning you can't even play a single Pot of Greed. So that's really nice, just boxing out this deck from Pot of Greed, which was just very abhorrent. The deck's still very good, but also Runic Tip from 0 to 10 means you're probably not playing it with Tip either. You can't even play 1 Sakata, 1 Totem, and 3 Tip, alongside 3 Eldom, 3 Chant. Just pretty good hits in general. The deck's still very playable, but I think that's fine. It's a lot weaker than it was before, because you don't have 100 points of non-engine to play. Next up is going to be Gygas from 0 to 5, Xeno 0 to 10, Kultun Clip 0 to 5, Q 0 to 5. I think that's fine. Probably unnecessary, in my opinion. I don't think Heka Hands or Kultuns were even going to be particularly good in Genesis, even with 0 points. But I think they're still at a point where it's playable, like one of the tier 2.5, tier 3 Genesis decks. They're fine. Dodo Warrior 7 to 70. I love to see this. You can no longer play Dodo Warrior with Anamata Pyra. You can't play it with Rongo, right? Because those are both above 30. 31 at least before this list, and 33 before this list. That's very, very nice. It means if you're playing the deck, you're probably just cutting Dodo Dodo Warrior entirely and just focusing on like Para. You could just play Dodo Dodo Warrior as your 70 and be like, all right, I'll cut Para entirely. Either way, it doesn't feel great. Yeah. Very good spot for it. I like that you can't play it with Para. Case going 0 to 20. I like that a lot. Jokel going to 33. Maybe a bit too much, but I mean, I'm perfectly fine with it. And Ripper going to 30. I definitely don't think you need to do Ripper in addition to Case to 20, Jokel to 33, but I'm fine with it. Souls 0 to 15. Circular 0 to 15. I think that's probably a bit more than I would like for Souls, but I don't mind it. Regulus, Designator, and Rafflesia all to 20. I think that's probably a good spot for these counter to the counter type cards. Overall, I don't think that like decks playing 3 crossouts to counter hand traps is like particularly fun gameplay. And I think just like pretty much boxing these cards out of the format outside of like Regulus in decks that play Regulus, not as just like a hand trap stopper, but just as a good card, is nice. Liger Dancer to 51. Very, very nice. I like that Lunalight is still playable, but you can't play 2 Liger Dancers. I think 1 is definitely a lot easier to play through. In my Jiggertail list, I was pretty much in a spot where like I could deal with 1 Liger Dancer the majority of the time, but 2 Liger Dancers with the Silverhound in graveyard was almost impossible to play through. So I think that's just a really, really nice spot for it to be in. Rongo to 68. Really nice spot. Again, you can't play it with Para because Para is 33. That would be 101. You can't play it with Para. You can't play it with Dodo Dodo Warrior. It's a floodgate, so you could probably put it to 100, but I'm fine with it. Magnus to 33. That's fine. I think they could have gone to like 51 with Magnus, but I don't mind this. X Pearly Noir to 33. I think that's probably a good spot. This is like a minor nerf to Pearly, with Pearly going to 7, Pearly going to 10, and Sleepy going to 10. You can't play all of these together with a Noir, but you can play them all together without Noir, so there's a little bit of give and take there. Overall, I think it's probably weaker if you are going to play a Noir, which is fine, and it's stronger if you're cutting Noir entirely, which is nice. If you want to play it as a breaker deck with just like killing them with Pearly Happiness, that's a strong deck, and I like that that's playable now. Gaga 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 Girl, 0 to 15. I don't know if that's necessary, but I'm fine with it. As Gabanga going to 15 as well. Nice. I think like the Goblin deck was still going to be strong, and I like that they're putting some hits on it. Grand Entrance going to 20. It's nice. Jam Dragon Drag going to 15. Like to see it. Galaxy Photon Dragon for the Tachyon deck. Not bad. Nash Knight going 10 to 15. Zen Mighty going to 15. Nice that they're just saying, if you want to play the Hunter hand loop, you can't do it, but we're going to make the rest of the wind-up stuff a lot cheaper. Nice. Alum Bershin going from 0 to 20. That's interesting. I'm curious if this was for MathMech specifically. I doubt it. I think it's probably just like as a 4 that can just get like any other level 4 guy. Although they did put Circular to 15, so maybe it is just for MathMech. I'm not sure. I can't imagine MathMech was particularly good, but maybe just like setting up 3 guys, putting them into an Allen Burst and getting Super Factorial was enough. Primera going 5 to 2, Trudea going 3 to 1. Gotta love to see that. I want Centurion to be a playable deck in the format. Same with Ninjas. I think they're both very fair and fun decks. Deception going to 40. Makes sense. You don't want like the Azamina stuff to be too powerful. Ash Popular going to 0. Hidden City going to 0. Levineer to 0. All very fine stuff. Fine changes. I don't think they're going to see too much play, if any. Dragon's Light and Darkness, 7 to 3. Not important. Asceticism, Shien's Dojo going to 0. Lovely. Barrier of the Voiceless Voice going to 20. I think Voiceless Voice is a deck that has a lot of potential in the format now. I think it's very strong and hard for some decks to deal with. Um, that being said, not having Pendulum Graph is just such a tough thing to do because you just, for decks that don't care about Sauravis, you only have just the one Skull Knight and the Radiance pops, which is just not enough often. Nadir going 33 to 20, not bad. I could definitely see myself playing a Nadir package, but it had to be a very specific deck. Lady Lab going 33 to 40, Big Welcome going 33 to 20, Welcome Lab going 33 to 20 as well. I think that actually puts Labyrinth in a very interesting spot where you can play like 3 bigs and a Welcome for 20, and you can play like Typhon for 10, and you have like 10 more to work with. I think this makes it a lot more realistic that you're going to play this with just Lovely and then these guys and the furniture pieces, and I think that's a very strong spot for the deck. I like it. Regis going from 0 to 10, that's obviously a decently big hit to Dracotail. Regis was a very important card, and you can still obviously play it because you have 17 to work with, although I find myself doubting I would. I think 10 points for Regis is probably more than I'd be willing to justify spending, but I would consider it. More importantly, a buff to Dracotail is Dragon Maid Show going from 20 to 10. That's a card where you really just couldn't play it in Dracotail before, but Chamber Dragon Maid, searching Changeover, being able to be Changeover to summons Arthalion, you can bounce back Chamber for Changeover, and then just use the Chamber and the Arthalion on board to make Show. That's very, very strong, right? Show's going to bring back Chamber and Standby, get another Changeover. When it tags out into House, if you bounce back your Chamber, you get a pop with House. This is a very, very, very good card for Dracotail, and that makes the deck a lot stronger, you know? Lady going from 20 to 10. I definitely wouldn't play Lady in Dracotail, but the card is very good just in Dragon Maid decks in general. Just a very strong card. Tidying going from 10 to 5. Not bad. Emergence Moye going to 10 and 0 respectively. Very good. Ashina going to 3. I think this makes Sword Soul a lot more playable. And something I'd maybe think about now is before I probably just wouldn't. Danglong going from 33 to 20. Charge going to 25. Not particularly important. I really like this. Griffin Rider going to 50. Armaseer and Water and Trenches going to 0. This means that if you want to play the deck with a Legal Knight instead of Griffin Rider, it's completely free. It's 0, 0, 0. Do I think you would play this? I think you would consider it in some decks, for sure. A Legal Knight's a very powerful card. Armaseer, Fateful Adventure, Drickaback, they're all very powerful cards. And I think they're at a really good place for Genesis with a Legal Knight at 0 points. Tamer Editor, 33 to 80. Proving Ground, 25 to 0. Rejection, 10 to 0. This makes the deck a lot cheaper, but you're probably just straight up cutting Tamer Editor, which is nice. I think the deck just taking out Tamer Editor makes it more interesting. Sulfador, 3 to 5. Inclusion, 33 to 25. Smiger, 5 to 0. Thistfern, 5 to 0. Definitely very good for Crystron. Crystron was already a powerful deck, and this makes it a lot cheaper to play. Now you could realistically play like 3 inclusions if you really wanted to. 3 inclusion plus 3 Sulfador is 90, and that's not bad. Fallen in the Virtuous, 15 to 40. I think that's a bit much. I think like 30 would like be a point where maybe you would see play. Like 25, I think would even be fair. 40? Like, I don't even know if this is the box out branded. Like, I don't think you're playing this card and branded regardless, really. But, like, as a generic, 25 a copy? 30 a copy? Is that really not enough? Like, I think they could bring it down a touch. At least to 30. 30 for like 90 for a playset. You can't tell me this card is significantly better than Pot of Greed, especially when Albion is still points on it. Um, Now, the other one that searches it, you'd probably have to put points on it if you're cutting down a little bit, but that's fine. The one that searches branded spells, or sorry, Dogmatica spells. Dragon that devours the dogma. It has points on it, yeah. Maybe it's Titanic Cloud because you can summon Ecclesia and search it. But yeah, I think this could time in a little bit. Albion going to 5, Titanic Cloud going to 0, Sprin going to 0, Brigand going to 0, Dogma to 5, and Granguignol to 0 is actually another thing that's very important for Dracotail. Playing Fusion Deployment as a way to special Cartesia from deck for 0, that's really, really nice. Garura is also at 0, so that's a really nice package you can play for very cheap. Again, something I would definitely consider using my free 17 points on. It really changes how you can play the deck. Incoming Machine going to 0, that's fine. Full Metal Dragon to 33. I like this overall. I think the card is very powerful. And I think, these Omni Negates cards should have, a bit more restriction on them. I think it could be a little bit cheaper, but I definitely don't mind it. Sublimation to 1, Dark End to 1, Assault Synchron 5 to 1, Change of Heart to 7, Snatch Steal to 5, DDKC to 3. That is actually something that I think would see a lot of play. Again, if you're playing Lab, you can play these spells like 3 big, 1 welcome for 80, Typhon for 10, and then 3 DDKCs for 9. That's definitely a nice spot to be in. Dominus Impulse going to 20 and Spiral going to 0 means this card is going to see a lot of play out the board, possibly even the main for decks that don't play lights and darks. This card is very, very powerful for 0 points. You can't tell me Dominus Spiral isn't better than DD Crow and Scully. I think this card is very, very good. Duality going 10 to 3. I like that a lot. It's a very fun card. Foolish Burial Goods 3 to 7. That's pretty hefty for decks that wanted to play FBG. Premature going 7 to 3. Reborn going 10 to 15. Dimension Fusion still at 40 points, and then Return at 40 as well. What can I say? I think this is a very, very, very good list. It really put stuff on all the problem cards I wanted to see get hit. Rongo is now basically completely boxed out of the Dodo Warrior on a mat deck. Liger Dancer, you can't play 2 of it anymore. Magnus didn't really get much of a hit, just lost some hand traps, but that's fine. It was clearly the worst of these 4 decks. Well, maybe not the worst. I think Super Quant is still very strong, but I think it was fair. Again, I think this could have gone to 50, but it's fine. Noir to 33, and all that stuff. Dodo Warrior getting completely axed. Radiant Typhoon getting good hits that I like to see happen. The deck is still very strong, but it's not free anymore. And yeah, I really like all of this. Really quick, I wanted to go over Dracotail. Right, I still think it's quite possibly the best deck, but it is much more in line with where I think it should be, where it just can't play turn 0 anymore. I made this quickly. This is kind of off rip what I think the deck should look like. You're still playing 3 of every single name except for 5 mana. You can now play Cartesias because Granguignol is free. You still have some of these nice draw cards because if you have Cartesia plus them, you can fuse into a Granguignol, dump Garura, get 2 draws. Crowley is still a very nice card. You can just Arthalion fuse into it, add it back, make Zoroa. Chamber is really, really good. Just being able to search Poly, fuse away guys from hand and make Arthalion, get them back, change over, bounce back Chamber, and then fuse into a Shao, which is going to be a negate, follow up by reviving Chamber, searching another changeover, floating into House getting pop. It's just a very, very, very good card in this deck. Rahu, Fusion Deployment to get Cartesia without normaling, get the 1 Key to the 1 Flame, 1 Horn, 1 Sting for 99 points. altogether. I think if I was still playing this deck, I would definitely keep Alistair in the board somewhere. This is basically your only way to actually like deal with the Liger Dancers and like the Magnuses, like all those cards that just say, you can't beat me. Alistair gives you a way to very, very reliably deal with them while not being something that's dead like a kaiju. You know what I mean? A kaiju is like, it doesn't help progress your game state, while Alistair does that while also providing an answer to those cards. Um, yeah, I think in the board right now, Arthalion Gulamel, the 2 Secretarion, Chaos, Grand Guignol, Garura, you're playing the Purgatrio, Raijin, Ivice, Zoroa with House and Show. Seems like a pretty good extra for right now. If you were playing like the Chamber and the Crowley still, and I think they provide, a lot of good reason to do this. Like, you have a lot of fusions still in this deck. You have a lot of names. It just feels very good overall. I think the deck's worse than it was before, but so is a lot of the best decks, right? I think how it got hit was similar to how much the like it's similar to like how Radiant Typhoon got hit, where Radiant Typhoon didn't lose cards, but they lost a lot of points. This did lose cards, but it was already at 100 in engine to begin with, and your engine is still really strong, right? What it really lost was the ability to play turn 0 reliably or semi-reliably with Fimenas. But the deck is as strong, if not maybe even more strong turn 1, with like being able to play Show, and still a really, really good breaker deck, just being able to resolve a fusion spell and just wipe their whole board. I feel very, very nice about this list. I think it addressed a lot of the problems with the format, cut the top decks in line with where they should be, and yeah, I think it's a very good spot. Let me know if you have any questions about, Draco Tail, about the list, about any things, any decks, how they're going to look in the format. And yeah, I'll be sure to let you guys know my thoughts and whatnot. Thank you all for joining us. Please have a nice day. Take care. Stay safe.